And so when it comes to guarding your eyes, what you see, what you're focusing on, you have to really be diligent about it. So many things are happening at once. And if you want to achieve the things you've set out for yourself, you have to remain focused. And visual cues are one of the most powerful keys to stay focused, especially in the day and age where information is at our fingertips. Whether you're resting at home, driving, or on a tropical island somewhere, living your very best life. Welcome to the Marie Bliss podcast. How was your day and how was your week? Come on in and take a seat. Welcome everyone to today's episode. So today we are talking about the power of visual cues. Now, before we get into what a visual cue is, to start off with, what is a cue? So a cue is something that prompts you to take an action or take a particular step. So it is a prompt to act. For example, if you have ever studied drama, GCSE, A-level, or just gone to a theatre production, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, cue the lights, cue the sound, cue the music. And essentially, the director or whoever's in charge is letting the people know that this is the time that you need to take this particular action, so that when it comes to the play as a whole, everything is where it needs to be at the right time. So cues are very important, not just the cue itself, but the timing as to when you act upon that cue is equally crucial. Because imagine the director said, cue the lights. The lights were not cued. It's still dark. So now it has actually delayed and slowed down the whole production because they can't see. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because I saw how beneficial using visual cues were for me in the lead up to my first event, undergraduate law in a nutshell. And I want you to also grow and to also succeed in whatever it is that you set your mind to. So if there's something I've tried and I've seen how beneficial it is and how much it's helped me, I want you guys to also be helped as well. So looking back to visual cues, it sounds like a very long word, but to shorten it down, visual reminders or a reminder that is before your eyes. They act as cues to the brain and trigger the original memory or the original intention that led to that memory being formed. Now, we're looking at the original intention. That is our focus for today's podcast. The intention behind making the visual cues that you'll go on to create from today. As we defined at the start, a cue is a prompt to do something. And sometimes that something can be internal or external. Looking at visual cues, we are surrounded by visual cues every single day. For example, if you've been to the gym, you'll notice that from the changing room to where the weights are, to where the rowing machines are, there tends to be different things that the gym owners have put along the walls. Some words of encouragement or something that is letting you know that you can do it. Going, for example, to a movie. There's movies where the sports person is about to enter the field, but they're feeling a bit unsure. Then just as they leave the tunnel, they look up and see a slogan that has to do with the team, has to do with what the team believes in, their core beliefs. And then what does that prompt do? You will see that the player starts to feel energized, starts to feel like I can actually do this, starts to feel that they can actually accomplish something great in a few seconds' time on that field. Once again, visual cues are everywhere. In your workplace, I'm sure there are things on the walls, whether it's photo frames, whether it's a mission statement, something, and even bringing it to the home. I remember growing up, there was a carved kind of wooden ornament that was on the wall, and it said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And that was on the wall in our house. And growing up, I saw that every day, and it stuck in my head because I was constantly seeing it. We can see that the cue can lead you to take an internal or an external action. Internally, there can be belief, faith, and hope that arises in an individual when they see that visual prompt. Why does this even matter? When there is somewhere you want to be, one of the things you have to really determine in your heart is to stay focused. Focus is really the key to staying on top and being where you need to be at the right time. Focus is so critical. So, if there's anything that you can do to keep you focused and to remain focused, why not do it? I remember reading a book about success a few years ago, and the author was talking about how he, for example, he has a frame with some kind of writing or some words or an image of the person he wants to be. And he has that in his office or he has that in his car, just in front of his eyes so that he can see it on a daily basis. So, in the midst of all the noise of everything that he goes through, the information that comes his way through his phone, through messages, friends, whenever he sees that, it's like, it brings him back to what it is that he needs to be doing at this time. Visual cues are so important because they realign your focus. They tell your mind every time you come across that cue, a prompt to say, hey, there's something you're meant to be working on right now. There is a goal that you have that you've not yet achieved. Or it's a reminder that this is the person I want to be. So I need to be doing things towards becoming that person. It can be internally or externally. When you're building something, you need to stay focused on that task. Otherwise, you will never complete it. Because the moment you start laying the first 3 bricks, your mind then sees, oh, there's a kite outside. You look at the kite. Time is going. You've only laid 3 bricks. Oh, there's a dog to the left. Okay, there's a cat to the right. So many things are happening at once. And if you saw that on TV, you will think, what is this person doing? They literally have something that they are trying to build, and they are distracted by so many things that they've not even finished their building. And that's kind of sometimes what we can do without realizing. Because when we open our phones, we are met with so much information, not just from the people you know, the people you don't know, the cities, the towns beyond where you are, nations. There is news you are hearing, very sad news, very painful news. Our minds and our brains process so much information on a daily basis. From the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, your eyes come across so many things. And even when you don't think that your brain has processed it, it has. How would you expect yourself to remain focused on adding the next 3 bricks to what you've started when you are flooded with so much information, either by choice or not by choice? Even if it's not necessarily your phone that is providing that information, when you go to work, there are tasks that you have been set to do at school. There are things that require your attention throughout the day. And when you get home, you're tired. Or when you get home, you just want to rest and relax. So you might forget that there's something you're working towards. So many things are happening at once. And if you want to achieve the things you've set out for yourself, you have to remain focused. And visual cues are one of the most powerful keys to stay focused, especially in the day and age where information is at our fingertips. And so visual cues kind of act as a break, a buffer to block out the distractions or to block out the overflow of information that is trying to get access to your eyes and therefore to your heart. When it comes to guarding your eyes, what you see, what you're focusing on, you have to really be diligent about it. So let's start. I call this Marie's Cue Creating, MCC. MC. Okay. So number 1, when creating a visual cue, the first thing I think that's important is location. Location. Where you put the cue matters. It has to be a place that you visit regularly. You can't put the cue in the garage if you don't go to the garage. There's no point putting it there because you won't see it. And the whole point is for you to see it, for it to prompt you to act upon whatever it is that cue was created for. It has to be somewhere that you pass by regularly. However, it must be a place where you exercise sufficient control over. There is no point putting your visual cue on the lamppost outside your house because you don't exercise control over that lamppost. It belongs to the council, for example. So, somewhere where you exercise sufficient control over, for example, your room. And in your room, it has to be somewhere that you often see. People tend to use just above the mirror or just next to the mirror because they know that they'll look in the mirror in the morning. Inside the cupboard, when they get dressed in the morning, they'll see it. Or, for example, if their bed is next to the wall next to their bed. So when they roll over in the morning, they see it. So, for example, even with work, it's not everywhere in your workplace that you can use to place your visual cue. On your desk is perfect because that area you exercise sufficient control over. You will need to exercise discretion and wisdom as to where you place this cue because the cue is for you. It's not something that you really want other people to be seeing. So, putting it somewhere where it's visible enough for you to see, but discreet enough that others will not see it. But that also depends on the intention behind the cue. So, that's on to point number 2, season. The season you're in will dictate the type of cue that you will create, the type of reminder that you need for this season. Some reminders are lifelong. For example, as I said, in my house growing up as a child, we had, as for me in my house, we will serve the Lord. That was a lifelong reminder because that was something my parents decided was what represented our family. However, there are things that are seasonal. I remember in my final year of law school, undergraduate law, I bought a balloon which said, "Congratulations, graduate." And I blew the balloon and I pinned it to my notice board in my room. I saw that balloon every day. So when I woke up, went to bed, it was there as a reminder of the fact that I want to graduate. So therefore, let me give this final year my all. Seeing that balloon every day was an added motivation and encouragement to me. And it was so subtle, but it really made a big difference, especially when you're doing your assessments and you're kind of thinking, this is looking tedious. But then looking at that balloon, you're like, but there's a graduation that I want to get to. So let me dig deeper and keep going. That's what visual cues do for you. When your thoughts try to overload you and make you feel like this is not possible, that visual cue prompts your mind to the original intention behind it, which was, I'm putting this here as a reminder to myself that I can achieve this dream, that I can achieve this goal, that this version of myself is very possible. That is why you need it, because you may be feeling encouraged and motivated today, but there may be some days where other people's opinions might be getting to you, or maybe you did something which you thought is now a setback to what it is that you want to do. But then when you look at that visual cue, it's like, no, the intention behind this thing was for me to know that this dream is a possibility. So I'm going to keep going. And you have to keep going because it's going to keep staring at you every day until you keep going. I think that's another reason why I like visual cues, because when you sometimes feel like, oh, I can't be bothered, this is long, the visual cue is staring at you like, so are we gonna work towards this or not? And because it's in your eyes, you can't avoid it. That's why location matters, because when you go to the mirror in the morning, you will see that reminder that says, I am excellent. I am outstanding. I am a world changer. I am, insert your line there. I hope you understood number 2. Moving on to number 3, the type of visual cue or the format in which it takes. Depending on the location, it will tend to dictate the type. So for example, if the location was your wall, the type of reminder might be a poster, might be a picture, might be a written note, a post-it note on the wall. If, for example, the location was your phone, then the type of reminder would be different. It could be calendar alerts. It could be changing the wallpaper on the front. It could be using the reminder app itself to send you alerts as to what it is that you need to be doing. But I think pictures work better because they say pictures paint 1,000 words. And I'm sure you've seen people who have done tremendously well in losing a lot of weight, and they tend to have a picture of what they used to look like still on their phone in their gallery, because that picture paints 1,000 words. It reminds them of the discipline, the hard work, the sacrifice, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into dieting, exercising when they didn't feel like it. So many unspoken things come from that one image because the brain is going back in time to when that original memory or that original intention was created, and it's bringing with it the emotions, it's bringing with it the feelings that came in that point in time. So when they look at those pictures, they feel emotional because the brain is reminding them of the emotions that surrounded the creation of that image. So for that person, that picture is a powerful tool to keep them going on the days where they may feel like going back into old habits. So if it's possible, having an image would be great because it's giving your mind an idea of where you want to be or who you want to be. Words are equally just as powerful. Now, putting this into my own example, as I said at the start, I just had my first in-person event, Undergraduate Law in a Nutshell 2025. And I just give God all the praise, all the thanks for that session. I think for me, now that it's done, there are so many lessons that I've learned from it. It was a privilege for me to put on a session that I wish I had when I was a first year law student many years ago. So putting Marie's Q creation to work in this undergraduate law in a nutshell example that I actually did. Number one, location. Because a lot of the work surrounded using our phones, location mattered. So my location was my phone. Because it was my phone, I did exercise sufficient control over that area, so that location was good. Number two, season. This project was not a lifelong project. It only lasted several months until the 25th of October. And so in that season, that project took preeminence, priority, and so it had to be at the forefront of my focus in the midst of the other things that I was doing. And so it was seasonal, and that was what I needed in that season. Therefore, the type of visual cue logically would be something related to the location, which was my phone, and that was changing my phone wallpaper. Something so subtle, so simple, but it makes such a difference. And sometimes the simplicity of things makes us overlook its impact because we want to hear of things that are so strenuous, so complex, so difficult before we feel like it's going to work. But it's in the simplicity of certain things that we see the most impact, the most power, that yields the most fruitfulness. For example, look at salvation. Look at how simple it is on our part in terms of believing in our hearts and confessing with our mouths that Jesus is Lord. Simplicity of the gospel, but it yields so much fruit, so much power. So don't skip over the simple, in quotes, things. So changing my phone wallpaper. The effect of that, very, very powerful. Anytime I picked up my phone, before I entered my password, what I was met with was the picture of the venue location. Anytime I saw my phone light up with a notification from an email or something, the venue was what was staring back at me. So even if my mind wanted to wander and just pick up my phone and just go wherever my phone took me, what I was met with first was the venue. So it prompted me internally to remember that there was something I'm working towards. And externally, it meant that what I then did after putting in my password was directly related to that prompt, i.e., working on this event. And it was so helpful, especially on days where you are flooded with so much information from all areas of life, and it can sometimes drown out what you are working on. That reminder really helped me to just remember to stay focused. It was really beneficial for me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. Yours doesn't have to be a wallpaper on your phone. And like I said, it was seasonal. Once the event ended, changed my wallpaper back to my family because it was seasonal. And the next time I'm working on something which maybe centers around my phone a lot, then I will change my wallpaper again. It's seasonal, it's not forever. And the thing you're working on doesn't have to be a big project. It can literally be that, for example, you want to work on being kinder, you want to work on being more selfless, more loving, then maybe having as your wallpaper a Bible verse about love, maybe having on your wallpaper a declaration about being a kind person. Something like that can make a big difference. Maybe you're trying to heal from something from your past, then the visual cue you may need in this season might be, I'm sure there's pictures of, you've seen those pictures of somebody's drawn like Jesus hugging someone, crying. You can have something like that, or maybe a quote about the power of being a healed person, or maybe a declaration that you've written out for yourself, saying things like, I am not my mistakes, I am not this, I am not that. And then in its place, writing who you are. And if you're looking for information about who you are, gotta go to the manuscript, gotta go to the original place, which is, I believe, the Word of God, the Bible. It tells you so many wonderful things, that you are chosen, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, that you've been called out of the darkness into his marvelous light. I hope you guys can see how beneficial visual cues are. Very simple, but very effective. And as I've mentioned in books I've read about successful people, they talk about having some kind of visual cue reminder in their office, on their desk, somewhere, so that in the midst of the noise of just life, something pierces through and realigns them to their vision, their goal, and their aspiration. I would encourage you to apply MCC this week, this month, this year, on whatever area of life you need it for. If you are a mother who is currently raising kids, then maybe the visual cue you need is something about the power of motherhood, something about the importance of mothers and how mothers really are so vital to the health of not just families but our world. Story for another day. Just something that would encourage you, something that reminds you that you are not alone, that God is helping you in this season. God has given you the wisdom, the grace to be able to raise your kids, to know what to do at any particular time. Just a reminder that will help you. And it is subjective. It depends on you as an individual, what you respond well to, what type of words would compel you or encourage you, or images that would help or not help. You know yourself, you know what motivates you, what will spur you on, or what will just discourage you. So avoid that type of thing. I remember when I was younger, there was something I wanted to work towards, and there was a phrase I would use. I would say, XYZ doesn't build itself, or XYZ doesn't create itself. Taking that phrase I used when I was younger, and for example, you want to build a global fashion brand, it would be global fashion brands don't build themselves. Smiley face. Heavy on the smiley face. And that was something that helped me when I was younger, that phrase, XYZ doesn't build itself, because it was a reminder and a prompt for me to take action and remember that this dream will literally stay a dream unless I do something about it. I can imagine it in all its grandeur in my head, but if I don't bring it from my head into the physical with the actions I take on a daily basis, then it's just going to stay as a thought. And the other day I was thinking to myself, a lot of us know our potentials. We really know what we are capable of if we really give ourselves time to focus and to do. But then I thought to myself, nobody rewards just potential. They reward potential in action. Therefore, use the visual cues this week, this month, this year, and act upon your potential. As you create these visual cues, make sure that you are encouraging in your tone, positive, be kind to yourself. The world of its own will sometimes try to be unkind, be harsh, be mean. So the least you can do for yourself is to be kind. Be kind to yourself. It's really important. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And just before I close, as I was thinking about visual cues, as I mentioned, the Word of God is filled with so many reminders, so many visual reminders in the text about who we are as children of God, who God has made us to be in Jesus Christ. And I was reminded of the scripture that I read a while ago in Deuteronomy. So I have my beloved Bible here. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, those of you listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, that's the sound of my Bible opening. Sorry, that must be very interesting on your part. Deuteronomy chapter 6, this is the Lord speaking. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. 8. You shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. 9. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. This scripture is very powerful, and I think the location here on the doorposts of your house and your gates matters, because when they go outside, before they go out, they see these commandments that God has given to them. When they come back in, they see it. It was about repetition, reminders, constantly having these things at the forefront of their eyes so that they don't forget them, so that they don't find themselves acting in disobedience because they have forgotten what it was that God had instructed them to do. So we see a visual cue here, whether metaphorically or literally, because God wanted them not to forget what it was that He had commanded them to do. And so He said, on your doorposts in your house, on your gates. So when you go out and come in, you have at the forefront of your mind and in your heart to please the Lord, to obey His commands, and to keep His statutes. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and try out MCC this week, month, year. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining me over on Marie Bliss's podcast. God bless you and keep you. Bye.